Breaking news, breaking news, breaking news. Duane Keefe D. Davis starts jury selection today. I'm going to break down what jury selection is, what parental strikes are. We're going to get all into this. I'm going to play a joint, run it back, what this whole thing began, let you see it. Then I'm going to give you my jewels on what it was like for Keefe D. sitting in the cell, waiting to be pulled out and going to trial to begin this process, because I've been there, because I served 26 years in federal prison and I had to deal with that same pressure. So I'm here to tell you that pressure, show you that pressure, so you don't have to go through that pressure. Let's get this started. All right? All right, so now we're going to start this party. Let's get right into it. This is what's going on, because we riding.
Today, jury selection will begin in the Tupac Shakur murder trial.
It comes nearly 30 years after the legendary rapper was gunned down in Las Vegas. Aziza Schuler here with more on the trial of Duane Davis, the first person to ever be charged in Tupac's death.
Yeah, that's right, Chris. And good morning, Cindy. One question that's hung over hip-hop history: who killed Tupac Shakur? Part of why this case has been so hard to crack, though, is because the gun was never recovered. Neither was the getaway car, and most of the men believed to be key suspects are dead except for one. Let's rewind back to September 1996. Tupac Shakur was riding in a black BMW with Death Row Records boss Suge Knight along the Vegas Strip. A white Cadillac pulled up beside them and gunfire erupted. Tupac was shot multiple times. He died 6 days later. Now, 30 years later, the man accused of setting this killing in motion is going on trial.
Now, so before we get into him going on trial, right, let me get some music going. I'm going to tell you about this parental strikes, right? Because they deal with parental strikes, but I want to take you inside the cell with Duane Keefe D. Davis right now. This morning, right, the talking stops. All that social media, Vlad, all the dialogue, everything, all that interviews, he the man, all that stopped. Now picture this. Last night, you know, tomorrow morning, they start choosing people for the jury who may decide whether you ever get to go home. So that's what Keefe D is thinking right now. This is a jury of not people that's your friends, not your family, not people from your neighborhood, not people who understand the environment you came up in. 12 strangers is going to be deciding Duane Keefe D's future. People you probably wouldn't have never met under normal circumstances, and suddenly they're interpreting your life. That could determine the rest of your life. That's where the pressure starts. Because today, Duane Keefe D. Davis, he isn't sitting down for another interview. He isn't even promoting a book. He isn't telling the old story. His face is sitting there staring at a murder trial connected to the 1996 killing of Tupac Shakur. And jury selection has started this morning. Class, that's an entirely different room, because there's something about freedom that people don't appreciate until somebody else has the authority to take away from you. Before you had to go in front of that judge, you was the man, you was the woman, you just knew you could do what you want to do. Now, and this is what makes this story even deeper about Keefe D. For years, words were words, stories were stories, and interviews got interviews, and people listened, people debated. Some believed him, some didn't. But today, those words potentially become evidence in a court of law. Think about that transformation. Something you said years ago when you weren't sitting at a defense table can suddenly sound completely different when a prosecutor plays it inside a courtroom and they hear your voice, the same words, different room, different consequences. And here's where I want the class thinking. When does telling the jury stop being a storyteller and start becoming evidence? All the stories he thought was just making him the man has now become evidence, because there's a lesson sitting right there. You can control when you speak, but you cannot always control how those words get used later. Now, the jewel in that, Ron. Your mouth can write a check. Your freedom may have to cash years later. The night before the jury. Now, we're going to get into the night before the jury, right? But before we get into the night before the jury, let's ride back and see what they talking about on the news.
Duane Keefe D. Davis is charged with murder with a deadly weapon with the intent to promote or assist a criminal gang. But here's what makes this trial so unusual to some. Prosecutors are not saying Davis actually pulled the trigger. They say he got the gun, helped track down Tupac, and set the killing in motion. Davis previously told police his nephew, Orlando Anderson, was the shooter. Anderson is now dead. So are the other men who were inside that Cadillac. And up until now, investigators have struggled to gather enough evidence to bring.
All right, so we already know up until now, prosecutors struggle to bring enough evidence against him. But remember, everyone in the car is dead. So who's there to collaborate a story? So he ran with the story. The story sounded good for decades. He was the man. I was even in prison. I heard about Keefe D. Never knew him, never heard about him, never thought nothing of him. And now suddenly he's connected to Tupac's murder. My homie that I ran with in the streets of New York. My compadre. But what they don't understand is life gets so crazy that need Tupac in my little, let's ride. I'm gonna take you on the Tupac ride. I feel like take you on the Tupac ride. I know they probably say, oh, this old man fronting. I'm gonna tell you, Ron. We're on 125th Street, and then here comes Tretchenham pulling up in a big, beige, 4-door, 300E. Tupac is with him. Tupac get out. Tretch know what I'm talking about. The East Orange crew know what I'm talking about. But Pop get out, you know what I mean? He see my little man, Mo Grime. He rolled up on Mo Grime. At the time, I didn't really know him, but then here he comes. You know what I mean? Mo introduced me to him as the big homie. I meet Tupac, we chilling. So I'm letting him know we going out later tonight. He tell me his money funny. But you riding with them rappers out of Jersey. He said, yeah, but my money funny. I said, but you riding with the rappers out of Jersey. He said, man, I told you my money funny. I said, come on, man. They had a dude that used to sell the clothes out the van. His name was Kool-Aid. Y'all from Harlem, you remember Kool-Aid? And I'm gonna tell you, we riding, right? We riding, right? Okay, another name just popped up that came in the story. So Kool-Aid used to have Renee working with him. If you don't know who Renee is Tiana Taylor's mother. You understand? When I say name, I say valuable name that can't incriminate nobody, but just to let you know that I was the central figure. I was like the hub in the wheel, and everything else was just spokes, and I made it roll. So you understand how this thing worked. But Tiana Taylor's mother working over there with Kool-Aid, Tupac sitting there. So I take him over there, me and Mo, we getting some gear. They had the vest. They just came out with the leather vest with the big square struggle pockets, you know? So they had them in like green, orange, yellow. And I want anybody to challenge me on what I'm saying, because I got a picture from this night. I captured this moment. I bought Tupac the crazy, you know, the vest with the hoodie and the car canai, and he came uptown with us, and we went up to the Mecca. So we got up to the Mecca, we smoking weed, we chilling with Tupac, everything good. You know what I mean? So we go upstairs in Tupac City. He had the dudes coming in, I think from, what's that I Get Around song, you know? So we had to go down to 127th Street with him over there where they got the school at. You know, oh man, you know, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful memories. But now after we go there, we come back later on that night, we all roll up to Mecca Audio. When we rolled up in the joint, Tupac couldn't believe the power I had. Tupac approached me and he asked me, he said, look, I'm getting ready to do a movie called Above the Rim. They want me to play a character just like you. He said, I can get you a little bag. Said, a little bag? I said, nigga, I am the bag. You know, we cocky, conceited, don't know no better at the time. I said, I am the bag. He said, nah, they told me to find somebody to train me and they'll pay them, the movie company. I said, man, movie company ain't got enough to pay me. And I don't want no whole bunch of people running around behind me. You know, me and you, all right, you good with more grime, we good. You know what I mean? He said, nah, but, you know, I want to bring my homies. And I said, nah, homie, we don't do the homies. You know what I mean? And that's no disrespect because I didn't like the fact that he came over here with Tretch and them and he ain't really had no paper in his pocket. You know, they driving big 300E with the BBS rims. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So challenge my story. You know what I mean? And when I found that out, I took Tupac shopping. That ain't nothing. Come on, you rolling with us. And that's how we wound up partying. And then they did Above the Rim and I'm sitting in Lewisburg and I'm in this joint like, what the hell is going on? They're really mimicking our lives. That's what I told Doo-Wop. Y'all know Doo-Wop, right? From 159th Street in Amsterdam. Me and Doo-Wop was in Lewisburg, Big L, you know, Boy George, you know, who else was there with us? Freddie Myers was there with us. Should I keep saying names or what? Prime Minister was there with us. Powerful was there with us. Miles was there with us. You know, Little Anthony from the Bronx. Anybody know Little Anthony from the Bronx? That was a dude getting money. You don't even hear his name because YouTube just talk about whatever they hear on YouTube. But anybody know who I'm talking about when I say Little Anthony from the Bronx was up in there. And then they had Clark Kent. Y'all remember Clark Kent? See, they don't even know who I'm talking about. See, I'm just riding right now. I'm gonna get back to Keefe D in a minute, but these is dope boys that was getting it. Millionaire dope boys. They called him Little Anthony because he was a baby, just like Little Hector. You know what I mean? Y'all heard of Little Hector? You know, I'm giving you names that YouTube don't even know about. And I got access to all these men because this men stay. Yo, what was his name? Rosario. Billy Rosario was with me in ADX. If anybody know Billy Rosario from the Bronx, tell him to hit me up. I couldn't read or write, and this man was teaching me how to read and write, sending me words down to study at night. Right? And he wrote down the definition and everything. Yo, Billy, I still have those writings that you wrote when you were teaching me those words. He taught me a word, right? Hey, Billy, remember this? Billy Rosario from the Bronx while I was in ADX Supermax in 1996. We used to talk through the vent, and when we went out to rent, he'll bring a piece of paper and he'll write down words for my curriculum to get me right. He helped me get my GED in there. You know, but he had a word that he gave me called autodidact. Do you know what an autodidact is? He called me an autodidact. I'm like, what the hell is an autodidact? I'm ready to hook off on him. What is autodidact? Like, you know, another big celebrity in the prison. He used a word I didn't know while I was at my ignorant stage, and he told me, man, you got a lot of tenacity. I said, to who? He said, tenacity. I said, nigga, F you. And he just bust out laughing. I said, what are you talking about? He said, I said, yo, you trying to see me? Where you going with this? He said, nah, you got a lot of tenacity. I said, yo, man, stop calling me that, you know? And he took me to a cell and he showed me what tenacity means in a dictionary. And we both bust out laughing. I thought he was cussing at me the way he said it because at the time I was pressing up on somebody, you know, about the legal work and all that. Lawyer dude just came in, got locked up, and I was trying to get to him before any of that even happened. You know what I mean? But anyway, so, you know, let me ride back into, you know, yeah, we're gonna ride back into the story. I'm trying to decide where I want to go, right? We're gonna ride back into the story.
Charges against anyone. However, in this trial, prosecutors are expected to rely on Davis's own words in interviews, documentaries, podcasts, and a tell-all book talking about the night Tupac was killed. A judge has ruled those statements can be used against him at trial. And in a recent interview, Tupac's stepbrother says the family is cautiously optimistic, even after 30 years.
It has been rough, as it would be for anyone revisiting a situation like this. Over the years, we have found ways to cope with the trauma, with the drama, and try to still continue on and have a full life. These are
Do you know what it's like to cope with the trauma of losing a loved one? I lost my brother. My brother got 2 to the head. They came to see me and they brought me down to a little interrogation room. They know I didn't leave the cell. I didn't play none of that interrogation crap. Go interrogate your mother, I would tell them. You know, they hated me. They hated me with a passion, right? I gotta tell you the story about the prosecutor too later. Mommy put in the comment, I'm gonna tell the story about the prosecutor. But anyway, now I'm telling you about my brother. So they call me down there and they take me down. I'm thinking I'm going to court. They take me to the room and then here come these federal marshals. They had these big, beautiful, glossy 8x10 pictures of my brother with his brains blown out. And they handcuffed me to a metal table with a metal loop in it. And they shackled my feet to a metal loop in the floor. And I'm sitting there just like I'm sitting now. And then they lay these, or should I say they sprawled these pictures out in front of me. And I'm looking, and my whole insides is in shock. Trauma is running rampant in me. But I wouldn't let them see it. So I just stared at those pictures. Tears never even thought to come to my eyes, just hurt. Anger. That's all that was in me at that time. And I just looked at those pictures. And I looked up at them. And they said to me, the fox hunt is over. The trigger is dead. And I went to move, but my body was frozen, was traumatized, and nothing moved. And then I just looked at him and I told him, I would take him back to my cage. At least he ain't got to die in your stinking prison. And they said, you will. And I said, better me than him, right? And rolled out. Let's get back into the story, man. You know what I mean? My bag for riding out like that. You know what I mean? This supposed to be about Keefe D. So let me get back in this, man. Let me get back on this. Now, we're going to talk about the night before the jury, because this is that was me sitting in the cell. But the night before the jury, now I'm not going to sit here and tell you I know what Keefe D thoughts was last night. I don't know nobody outside that man's head knows. But I know confidently, I know what nighttime does when something major is waiting for you in the morning, like trial, sentencing, motion, just going to court. I know what that's like. The building gets quieter. You could hear a mouse pissing on cotton in the cell block. I'm talking about 2, 3 in the morning when the demons and the trauma come out. And remember, we talking about Keefe D, right? So let's get real fly with this, right? We talking about Keefe D. So let's put Keefe D up in here, right? Give him a little music, you know? And then I could bounce it over here, right? So that's where we gonna go. I think I wanna be on this side of the screen right now. So now the building gets quieter, but your mind gets louder. That's the part people on the outside looking in don't understand. And that's what I'm here to bring you today. You can close your eyes without going to sleep. Your body can be on the bunk while your mind is traveling 1,000 miles away back to the incident that locked you in the cage and got you going in front of your judge in the morning. 1 minute you're thinking about your lawyer. The next minute you're thinking about the evidence, then the witness, then somebody or something you said years ago. And you're wondering if they could use that against you today. Then something somebody else said. Then you're wondering how the jury might hear this and how the jury might interpret it. Then you're replaying your defense. Then you're telling yourself, I'm good. Then 5 minutes later, the other voice creeps back in. But what if they don't see it the way we want them to see it? That's pressure. Confidence doesn't automatically remove fear. That's something young people need to understand. A man can believe in his defense and still understand that a trial is a trial. Both things can exist at once. I'm confident. And there's people that can bury me. Look at this man's face on the screen. And this is what a man in that situation goes through. Which one gets louder when the lights go out? That's the battle. Imagine trying to sleep knowing tomorrow the lawyers are gonna start examining strangers, trying to figure out who might judge you fairly. Would you be able to sleep knowing that in the morning that your lawyers is gonna be picking through a whole bunch of strangers to put your life in their hands? Look at what Keefe D is going through right now. I went through that. I know what that's like. I know that pressure. Now, they trying to, would you be able to sleep at night? Or would every interview, every conversation, every decision start replaying inside your mind like a movie? Remembering everything, trying to figure out what they could use, what they can't use, what you said that you may not have, shouldn't have, would have, could have, wouldn't have, must have, and definitely shouldn't have said. And the dangerous thing about the mind, you can't always press stop. You know, this is not a YouTube video. This is real life. You can't press stop. You can't press pause. You can't rewind this crap. Let me get a jewel real quick, man. Let me get a jewel in that. Now, some of the hardest times you do happens before anybody closes the cell door. The mind can build its own prison. Wow. While Keefe D was out there right before they rolled up on him, let's ride into that. Remember when they rolled up on him and he was taking a little morning stroll like an old man chilling out there in Nevada and they rolled up on him? He was already locked up. He was in what I call a psychological cell. Because he's wondering if they're coming, when they're coming. The phone is ringing. He's thinking it's them. It's bad news. It's his lawyer telling them they got something. You know what that's like? That's real pressure. So you understand. 12 people you never knew is going to be judging you now. Now, here's the piece I really want young people to hear. Look at how life flips. In certain environments, people care deeply about who understands the culture, who understands the neighborhood, who knows the code, who knows their history, who understands why certain things happen. But court doesn't work like that, block. Court don't work like you on the block. It don't work that way. This is a whole nother animal right here. Your jury may contain people you never lived anything close to, the life being discussed. They have to judge you about your life and they never experienced any of this pressure. Different neighborhoods, different experiences, different backgrounds, different ideas about street language, different understanding of loyalty, different understanding of fear, different understanding of reputation. The jury come from a whole different understanding than what Keefe D come from. But they have to judge him. And now your lawyers have to communicate your case to them and let them understand why we're traumatized and wound up in the hot seat in the first place. Think about the irony, Ron. People you might never have spoken to in everyday life may become some of the most important people you have ever encountered because they hold your freedom in the palm of your hands. He might have walked past these same jurors that he's gonna pick 1,000 times and never even paid them any mind because they wasn't in his lane. And now they decide his future if you can understand the picture that I'm painting. That's power. That's why I tell these young brothers, Don't build your life around what the neighborhood thinks, because if that lifestyle carries you into a courtroom, the neighborhood isn't deciding your verdict. Somewhere in that jury pool could be somebody who barely knows anything about Tupac. Somebody else may know everything about Tupac and take control of the trial and love Tupac and say, find his old ass guilty anyway. One person may hear certain language one way. Another person may hear it completely different. And that's when the lawyers are examining who can be fair, who really formed an opinion, who can listen to the evidence instead of the legend surrounding the case. But put yourself in that chair. What would bother you more? A jury who knows too much about the Tupac story, or one who knows absolutely nothing about it? If you was Keefe D, what would you want for that jury if you was sitting in that seat? That's not an easy choice, but it's a jewel in that. The street may give you a reputation, but the courtroom can put the reputation in the hands of people who never knew you. Now, we riding, right? Y'all come here to ride? Y'all like to ride? Put in the comments you like to ride. Oh yeah, let me let you know, right? Like I said, I got this little 100,000 thingy right here. To me, it's nothing. They said that don't mean nothing after they make you get all these things. Now they say they want likes, comments, and emojis and hypes, and a hype equals 160, likes. Man, this is just crazy, but that's what you got to do to get this video out there to show the love. Now, like I said, we ride. We're going to ride into the most dangerous voice, maybe his own. This is where this case gets fascinating. The prosecution doesn't have to have people talking about Keefe D. They have Keefe D talking about Keefe D. His public statements, his memoir, past interviews, and other statements have become major battlegrounds in this case. Think psychologically about that. Normally, when somebody testifies against you, your mind can go, he's lying, she's mistaken. They got an agenda. There's a reason for them doing that. But what happens when the voice coming through the speaker sounds just like you? That's what Keefe D got to deal with now. Now the fight changes. Let's go. The argument becomes context, meaning reliability. Was something exaggerated? Was something misunderstood? Was something entertainment? Was something factual? What exactly did he mean? That's where prosecution and defense can take the same words and build two completely different pictures. And 12 people eventually have to decide which picture makes sense. Same recording. Now let's ride into that. I feel like riding. Yo, class, sit back. I feel like riding right now. I'm gonna ride into that, right? I want you to understand that when you're going to trial, you have a lawyer, you have a prosecutor. They're both considered as lawyers in the courtroom. The prosecutor is the lawyer for the people, and the lawyer is your lawyer for you. So the prosecutor defending the people, so the prosecutor's gonna paint one picture from what the evidence that he hear, and your lawyer's gonna present another one. So they both write movie scripts at the same time. And it's who sells the best movie to the jury that decides your life. Now, same recording, same interpretations, one verdict. Tell me that isn't pressure for Keefe D to have to be under. And this is something I've been preaching on this platform. People believe the biggest danger is somebody telling. Sometimes it isn't. Sometimes the camera tells, sometimes the phone tells, sometimes the messages you text to your friends and loved ones tell, sometimes the interview tells, and sometimes you tell. Because you're telling it all to your device. So which is more dangerous? An enemy who remembers what you did, or a recording that remembers exactly what you said, Mr. Keefe D? Give me an answer to that in the comments. Let's go. Let's get these jewels going. I'm riding. We riding. All right, we riding. Memory can change. People can change. But a recording doesn't care who you became after you made it. Now, we riding again, but we love to ride. We love to ride. We're gonna talk street language meets courtroom language. Right? Pay attention, right? Now, this isn't, this is your OG professor. This is my part. Because I've watched people make the same mistakes forever. They think because something makes sense in one environment, it's gonna make sense everywhere. No, it don't work like that. Just like the streets believe if you tell you're a rat, but in another environment means if you tell that you're a good citizen. Now, street language and courtroom language are two different languages. On the street, somebody might make a statement for reputation, for ego, for image, to make themselves seem important. I'm not saying that's what happened here. I'm explaining the danger. Because once those words reach out, the government doesn't necessarily care why you wanted people to think you were powerful, Mr. D. They're asking, what does the statement prove? Imagine trying to explain years later, that's not what I meant. I was talking, I was exaggerating. That's not how it happened. Maybe the jury believes you, maybe they don't. That's the gamble that he's gonna have to take. And that's why the smartest statement sometimes is the one you never made. Young brothers watching me, and listen carefully. Stop thinking every story has to be told. Every question have to be answered. I played a video yesterday. Make sure you go check the video out on Keefe D, the last phone call he did with the interview with the lady in the prison. And he's trying to defend himself in the news media, and he's getting ready to go to trial. Now, like I said, stop thinking every old situation needs a podcast. Stop thinking every private event needs an audience. You don't know where life will take you or what will pop up later. Attention today can become evidence tomorrow, and once it's out there, you don't own it anymore. You can't change it. You can't touch it. None of that. Every story doesn't need an audience. Sometimes a maturity is nothing. Which part of the life you never needed a microphone? In other words, why the hell do you need a microphone? Why do you need a microphone? That microphone wound up getting him locked up. He's not even a rapper. You know what I mean? Is he too old to rap, or do you call that rapping what he's been doing for the last 30 years? Now, the confidence and the fear war, huh? Because, you know, he's confident right now and he's scared to death. Now let's return to this morning, because here's where the mental battle gets serious. You got your attorneys, you studied the case, you heard the arguments, you probably heard what the government plans to present. Your defense has a strategy too. So confidence has a foundation, but confidence isn't certainty. That's the word, certainty. Nobody walking into the jury trial gets granted certainty. And imagine what that uncertainty does. You might wake up saying, you can beat this. Then another thought says, What if one piece of evidence hits different? We can beat this. What if the jury believes the prosecution? We can beat this. What happens if they play the statement? Back and forth, back and forth. That's how the thoughts of certainty and uncertainty is battling. That's mental tug of war. And anybody who has ever waited on a serious decision understands the feeling. The mind tries to predict the future because uncertainty feels unbearable. So you keep running imaginary trials inside your head. In one version, everything works. In another version, everything falls apart. Neither one has actually happened, but emotionally, your body can experience both of them. That's why I tell you, freedom is psychological too. When your future isn't controlled by you anymore, you feel it different. And here's the uncomfortable question. Could you remain confident if your freedom depended on 12 jurors? Understand, 30 years of history, that's different. 30 years of talking, claiming it, that's different. Real power isn't acting like you have no fear. Real power is making decisions today that keep your tomorrow out of somebody else's hands. Now, we're gonna ride into Tupac. We got to ride into Tupac. Tupac is the famous name, right? Consequences are the real story. Now, everybody gonna talk about Tupac, and they should. A young man lost his life. Rest in peace to Tupac. His family lived with the loss. Hip hop lived with the loss. The culture lived with the question for about 30 years. But class, the lesson I'm teaching today is bigger than celebrity. One night, one chain of events, then decades of consequences. Think about that. 1996, and we're standing here in 2026, still talking about what happened 30 years ago. People died, families aged, children grew up. Entire generations came and went, and the consequences kept traveling. That's why I hate when young people say, it's just tonight. There is no such thing as just tonight. When you're making irresistible decisions, you're making irreversible decisions, and you're saying is just tonight. One night can create 30 years of mornings. That's the part the streets don't advise you. Everybody sells you the moment. Nobody sells you the decades after the moment. So which life are you really living for? The 5-minute moment or the 40-year moment? But you can get that 5 minutes of fame. That have to come afterwards. That 40 years come behind that. That's the conversation, so you understand. The moment is short, the consequences has no respect for time. 5 minutes can follow you for 40 years. When they called the first juror, and this morning, when that process starts, names being called, people being questioned, lawyers watching reactions, I want you to understand what that symbolizes. The case is no longer theoretical. Every person who sits in that jury box make one really heavy. That's the potential decision maker, is the people they're gonna be questioning for the jury today. And another one. And eventually, there's your jury. People who woke up living regular lives. Now, they're part of one of the biggest hip-hop murder trials in American history, and for that, the defendant, they're more than jurors. They're the people who may determine what tomorrow looks like for Keefe D. Imagine looking across the room, trying to read their faces. Who likes me, who doesn't like me, who believes the government, who came in knowing about the case, who's judging the tattoos, who's judging the past, who's really even listening. And here's the torture. You can't read minds. That's what makes jury trials powerful. You can study evidence, you can prepare arguments, you can challenge witnesses, but you can't climb inside a stranger's head and control what they believe. Would that be the hardest part for you? Not knowing what they're thinking while they're looking directly at you? That's pressure. That's pressure. Now, the jewel in that. Every time you see the bell, that means it's a jewel. Pay attention, class. And I want to thank y'all for coming. I'm sorry for keeping y'all over right now, but I took a little ride. When you give other people the power to decide your freedom, control becomes the illusion. The best verdict is the courtroom you never had to enter. Now, let me get a Unique Mecca audio twist. We're gonna ride into the twist and then I gotta get out of here. Been on here long enough, so I can really just cut it down here. Let's go. So let's go. And here's my twist on this whole story. Everybody keep focusing on who pulled the trigger, who's testifying, what's the book, what's the tapes, what Keefe D said, what Suge Knight might say, and all that matters legally. But I'm looking at something else. I'm looking at time. 30 years later, the past walked into the present. That's the story. Because people think when they survive something, it's over. No. Sometimes consequences are delayed. And consequences have another name, or should I say a cousin, called karma. Sometimes the bill doesn't come on Monday. It comes 30 years later. 30 years later. That's why a man can feel comfortable telling an old story. The danger feels dead. The moment feels buried. Everybody moved on until one day somebody knocks. Now the story isn't history anymore. It's Exhibit A. That's the psychological cell. Imagine believing you outlived the danger, only to discover the danger was aging with you. Which is worse? Knowing trouble is coming tomorrow, or believing you're safe for decades before it suddenly comes back? That's heavy. And for the young brothers listening and sisters, don't miss this. You can't build your future assuming your past will never find an address. Technology remembers, people remember, records remain, and statements survive. So create a past you won't spend your future running from. Now, let's get the jewel in that, right? Time doesn't always erase consequences. Sometimes time just gives them a longer memory. Now, let me get a closing in this, right? I gotta at least give y'all a closing, right? Do we gotta take a ride to a closing or what? The jury hasn't spoken. Keefe D is pled not guilty. The prosecution has allegations to prove. The defense gets to challenge those allegations, and the jury has not decided anything that matters. We don't convict people on YouTube. That's what courts are for. But we absolutely can study the lesson, and the lesson doesn't require a guilty verdict. Be careful what life you're building, because what moments you're participating in Be careful what you're saying publicly. Be careful what you're recording. And understand, freedom is more valuable than applause today. 12 strangers begin entering this story, and eventually those strangers may have to decide whether the prosecution prove its case. But my classroom has another verdict to make. Not on Keefe D or the principal. How much of the freedom would you gamble for reputation? How much would you gamble for loyalty? How much would you gamble for one emotional night? And how differently would you live today if you knew something you said could come back 30 years from now? That's the class. Now let me give you the final jewels so I can get y'all out of here. Freedom doesn't feel expensive until somebody else controls the price. The streets are real, the courtroom is real, but prison is realer, and none of it is worth your life. Now, let me ask you these questions before we go out. What's more dangerous? A class like this, right? Now, what's more dangerous? A case like this, or another witness, or your own recorded words? Can somebody be genuinely confident and terrified about the outcome at the same time? Would you rather have jurors who know the Tupac story or people who have never followed it? When does telling the story become telling too much? Should statements made decades later carry the same weight as statements made near the event? How would you handle hearing your own voice used against you in court? Is reputation ever worth putting freedom at risk? What's harder? What's harder mentally? Waiting for trial or actually sitting through a trial? Can 12 strangers ever completely understand a world they've never lived in? And the biggest one, if you knew your words today might be replayed 30 years from now, would you still say them? And I'm just gonna give you the jewel real quick on that so I get up out of here, let y'all out of class. Don't just study someone else's case, study your own decisions before they become your case. Now, I wanna thank y'all for coming, and I wanna show you why I do what I do. Let me bring this beautiful sister in. I'm gonna get right to it. I gotta bring in my man, Murder Mook.
Hey, what's going on, man? Murder Mook, Harlem, you know what it is, man. I just want to express how much gratitude I got for Unique, you know what I mean? I was telling him a story, telling him how I felt about, if anything was to go wrong with my career, rap-wise, if, should be slow, and I got so many opportunities to be able to do the wrong shit. When I watch Unique Mecca audio, I feel it, and to my soul, and that's keeping me farthest away from doing anything criminal. Anything criminal. He made me think straight, honestly. Made me think straight, because I've been watching him for about a year, a year now, mate, and it just took my mind way off of that. From a year ago, it got rough. For a year ago,
Yeah.
and from watching this man, I just felt like you saved me. You saved me. And I just want to show my gratitude, and I want to say thank you, man. Unique Mecca Audio, anything you need, brother, from me.
All right.
Anything you need, man.
All right.
What's going on, people? What's going on, man? You got your boy Lodestone out here in Harlem. I'm from the BX. I'm with Unique Mecca Audio. You know what I'm saying? It's a good vibe with the OG. I advise everybody, you want to hear real spill, real shit, no cap, tune in. Tune in and hear what the OG got to say, man. You know what I'm saying? He's gonna give y'all the truth, man. He's gonna give you that real shit, man.
Hi, I watch Unique Mecca's YouTube and it's amazing. Like his whole story is so nostalgic. It's so like Harlem. It's so like 1980s. It's so 1999. I've been watching his channel for about 2 years, and it's very informative and it's real. You know, you don't really get the real deal from everybody, but with him, you definitely gonna get the whole real story. This is a Harlem legend, kingpin, legendary. I'm so happy to just even meet him and be in his presence. Like his channel is very informal, and if you subscribe, you're gonna be just like me, a fan.
Alright.
I'm like, oh my God, is that him? I'm all fanned out. Like, you know, it was such an experience getting the chance to meet him and, you know, being a fan of his YouTube channel and just following him for the last 2 years and knowing his story and seeing his interviews. And I support him 1000%. And I'm subscribed to his YouTube. You should go and subscribe as well. Amazing, amazing.
What you got for the channel?
History, how hard it is to be in jail, the right and wrong moves to make when you outside, how one wrong move will cost you a whole lot, to be better, to do better, a lot of stuff. You'll get a lot of stuff from his channel, you know? It's very informal, and, you know, whatever that means to you, you'll definitely take a piece with you. Like, this is a good YouTube channel, honestly.
Here with the OGs, you already know. Yeah. Unique Mecca Audio. If you ain't tapped into Unique Mecca Audio, I don't know what you tapped into. I'm talking about real streets. I'm talking about real entertainment. I'm talking about real YouTubing, real getting to that bag. But I'm talking about a real OG that changed their life, yo. I changed my life the same way. And real OGs like that push me further to change my life. You hear me? Come look. Look what's going on out here. This Harlem. I'm a Brooklyn boy. So I only tap in with OGs like Mecca, man. Because I'm telling you, if you're not tapping in Unique Mecca Audio, I don't know what you're doing, man. Show them the seed, OG. They playing themselves. Congratulations, you played yourself.
Let's go. Hey, yo, tune in to Mecca Audio, man. Unique, man. Listen, man. I'm a young OG. I knew him since I was young. I used to be in Mecca Audio Studios. Great, man. I'm Ra from Tupac Me Against the World album. You can check my credentials. This is a good man, real man, Mecca Audio. I've been on this, man, since I was a little young lad, man. Before Tupac album, before I even did the outlaw shit and all that, man. Holla at me, man. And tune in to Mecca Audio Unique, man. Holla at us, man.
What's good, y'all? This New York Chuck. Yeah, and this Erupt One. Yo, you know, we just here, we out here in Harlem, you know what I'm saying? We out here, you know, rock birthday party. You know, but this party right here brought out a lot of people, you know what I'm saying? And one of the people that this party brought out was like a cornerstone in Harlem, like, you know, I'm talking about with the music, getting money, doing all, and, you know, actually, like a lot of us, we took a page out of his book, you know, to get where we became in life, you know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna shout my guy out. Shout out to Unique Mecca Audio. You know what I'm saying? He bring y'all real street knowledge. He got all the gangsters on his pod. We Harlem, we the streets. You know what I'm saying? Tune in to Mecca Audio TV, man.
No
on
doubt,
YouTube.
no doubt.
On God, yo. One love for Unique, man. We love you, bro.
Shout out to Harlem, shout out to Jersey.
Cheers, toast the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime, the crime. Fresh out the king.
can of 26. He back on the strip, getting back in the mix. What he mentions a gift. You stand up 10 toes down, and I suggest you pay attention to this. Take a little gully posse and put it in Harlem. He cut from the bottom, came up from the bottom. Drop the book, you should go and get it. The Instagram page and the YouTube, you could go and visit. Then you could consider yourself LinkedIn. Sit front row and get Jews from a kingpin. How he went through it, so you ain't gotta go do it. To not pay attention would be stupid. Talking about a man that probably put your grandfather on. Probably the reason that him and your grams got along. A man that generated millions on the block, did his time, never squilling to the cops, Mecca audio. Get it live like 2 G's in the 90s. Drop top beamer so shiny. I let shorty go, she was whining. Treat her like my past, she behind me. Spend a couple bands on the Dapper Dan. You be back again, getting green like a Packers fan. No cap, it's a roaring uptown. They be horn uptown, Dominican bust downs. Now we on the positive, we got a lot to give. Now he trying to stop the kids from being inoperative. So take heed, homie, lend the air. He started in uptown, he gon' finish there. But now it ain't about selling drugs, buying cars. It's about buying property to make the community ours, so we can give back to the